begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who've joined us today for this extraordinary adjourned meeting of the Cabinet. Excuse me. This is a continuation of the meeting held on Thursday the 20th of March that was adjourned to allow the views of the Joint Scrutiny Committee meeting to be fully incorporated within our discussions. But before we begin, I have some housekeeping rules for you. First, please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's website. Second, the Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and post to social media if you're so inclined. Thirdly, can ask everyone to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate. Let me make sure I've done mine now, having said it, yes. And finally, in terms of housekeeping, there is no fire alarm scheduled for today. So if there is an alarm, please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and proceed directly to the fire assembly point. Item 3, Peterborough Draft Local Plan. This can be found on pages 3 to 198 of your agenda pack. We'll now continue with the Peterborough Draft Local Plan item. This item was adjourned, as you may recall, from Thursday's meeting for us to consider feedback from the joint meeting of the scrutiny committees that evening. Draft minutes of that meeting were circulated to Cabinet members, and I can confirm that we have actually read them. There were two recommendations by the Joint Scrutiny Committee. One, the Joint Scrutiny Committee recommended that the Castor and Aylesworth site be removed from the local plan and be replaced by a more suitable site, and recommended that LP 49, 13 London Road site, otherwise known as the Green Backyard, should be removed and replaced by the Gravel Road car park. I'd like to pass our collective thanks to the Joint Scrutiny Committee for their consideration and thoughtful feedback. Councillor Thulborn, Cabinet Member for Growth and Regeneration, for the benefit of those watching that were unable to attend Thursday, can you provide a brief introduction to the report, please?
Thank you, Leader. Through you. It is vital that the Council has in place an up-to-date local plan that sets out the long-term strategy for the future growth and regeneration of Peterborough. The current plan is now more than 5 years old and is required by government to be reviewed. With an up-to-date local plan, the Council will be in a position going forward where it will be at risk of being unable to robustly defend its housing of the supply of housing sites, and could be subject to speculative applications, especially in and around villages, and challenges at appeal. We are already seeing planning applications submitted for sites in these areas that are contrary to the adopted plan. Overall, an up-to-date local plan means more certainty for everybody, the public, the developers and public service providers, about where growth will take place. Infrastructure providers, education, highways, NHS will also have more certainty to plan for future provisions contributing to the development of sustainable communities. To be clear, the government has set new mandatory housing targets. The Council must prepare a plan that can meet these targets and that can be robustly defended at the local plan examination. The proposed sites must be available and deliverable. If not, the independent planning inspector may choose to include sites not supported by the Council, or may even find the plan to be unsound, meaning that the Council will have no plan and will have to start the process again, resulting in significant additional costs and delays. The draft local plan proposed sites have been assessed against a wide range of assessment criteria to select the sites that are available and the most suitable and sustainable. It is important to note that if a site is removed from the draft plan, an alternative site or site elsewhere in the district will be required to ensure the mandatory target can be met. This is likely to result in another new settlement or more growth in the villages. The Joint Scrutiny Committees are asked to review the draft local plan as the part of their public consultation. The Joint Scrutiny made recommendations to remove the proposed site at Castor and Aylesworth and the Green Backyard. Whilst we have considered the views of both Planning Committee and the Joint Scrutiny Committee, it is considered only right and proper that the draft local plan is published for public consultation to allow wider consultation with the public, parish councils, developers, landowners, organisations such as Natural England and National Highways. So all the views can be fully considered and used to help shape the next version of the local plan. This may or may not involve the removal of the sites. So I'm suggesting that we put this forward and agree to go to public consultation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Thorburn. Do members we'll now move to questions. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Jamil.
I wasn't at the joint scrutiny meeting the other day, and I see one of the recommendations is that we take the Castor and Aylesworth site out. So whilst that was suggested, did they give us proposals as to where, because it's a substantial amount of houses, so trying to find that many houses somewhere else, did they come up with an area or did they say where that should come from?
Not to my knowledge. Councillor Thorburn, can you answer that, or officers?
They insinuated different alternatives, but the numbers didn't balance across, so it didn't stack up. I'm sure Gemma could widen that.
Gemma, can I bring you in?
Yeah, no specific alternative sites were suggested. And as with the Green Backyard site as well, it was a site that wasn't one that we've assessed and that's available. And that's a key point, that the land has got to be available for development as well.
Does that answer your question? Or
Well, it does partly. I just think to say take something out without actually suggesting is a bit, I just think a bit half-baked, but yeah.
I mean, it did come in the recommendations, you're quite right, but there doesn't appear to be to coin a phrase, an oven-ready alternative. Okay. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. With the public consultations, are you planning on asking the younger generations? Because obviously we are building and planning for future developments, but the children of today are the adults of tomorrow. So I think it's really important that we hear their view.
Yes, that's...
I think Ingrid has plans. Over to Ingrid.
Yes, is the answer to that. In my experience, so very typically, it tends to be the over 50 age group that responds to planning consultations of this nature. And as you say, we're actually planning for future generations. So it is absolutely my intention to do some engagement with young people, with schools, with our youth council, and to do a very specific piece of kind of active work about that to get a contribution from that demographic.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I mean, obviously, picking up on your point, obviously the children of today are the adults of tomorrow, where they want to live and where they want to work, and I think that's an absolutely capital idea. The other side of the coin is there, and are there any plans for membering? Because if we are going to remove a site, then we obviously need to understand the constraints and the opportunities. Do you want to answer that, or do you want to?
No, I'm not going to answer the question, obviously, but it is a comment. Obviously, we have got, a dire situation in terms of housing needs in the city. So, the comment that I want to make is you're absolutely right. Then without the public consultation will take place, but it's like last week with the scrutiny. We can take them out, but we need to replace them with something. So I think we have to be very careful, bearing in mind the targets that we need to know. The only other comment I'd like to make, if that's okay, Leader, is I felt there were some really good comments that came out of the scrutiny that we can take forward. So I was, there was a whole load of information in there, even like down things like the cemetery. I think they made some excellent points that are there for food for thought and help us to address them. Thank you.
I don't know whether you want to come back on that. Councillor Ellis has got a question about the about member engagement. Do you want to take Councillor Ellis's? Yeah, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very important we do have member engagement. The one thing which I did ask previously was, and I've managed to arrange as Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport, is actually focusing on that area to do with the local plan. What are your plans for general member engagement around this? Because this is a 20-year plan. This is huge. And we need to not think small. We need to think big, because this is a huge amount of time. I'll be in my 70s by the time we get to the end, and hopefully still be alive. And we need, and also, I'm sorry, I'm perhaps, as well as that question, I just want to make a comment at the same time. The one thing which I'm really keen, and I took notes because I did go to the joint scrutiny, I sat and listened and observed some of the things which were questions of things, what possibility for things like large sites for solar or wind powers or other sustainable methods of energy. And another things, when we're looking at the sites, we need to not just look at, you know, linkages for roads and highways. We need to look at alternatives to car use as well, like better cycle routes, better look at future provision. And then remember, it's 20 years we're going into the future. Possible linkages to rail stations, park and rides, bus depot, all those sort of things. We really need to think more future rather than just the here and the now as we are. You know, let's look into the future. And yeah, and just if you can elaborate on how you're going to engage members on that actual question.
So thank you. So we do have a plan, and the way that our thinking has been going is to understand what the public consultation provides us, and that wider public consultation, it was encouraging and really useful to have the feedback from the Joint Scrutiny Committee. That was well received and helpful to the team. And what we're thinking is when we get to the point where the public consultation is closed, we'll then do a series of workshops involving all members to work through the different issues. So to look at all the results from the public consultation, and then to have a themed approach really to workshops. So we'll have a workshop where we are looking at housing numbers, where we're looking at the sites that we've got, we'll look at the responses from public consultations, we'll look at any likely alternatives to that. We'll then move on and do the similar kind of work around employment sites, so looking at job numbers, job opportunities, and I think an opportunity there as well to understand a bit more about our economy and look at our economic data to understand what we could be working on and building there as well. And then similarly, I'm thinking, because there was quite a lot of talk on Thursday night about sustainability and environment, so I'm thinking a session again around that, so looking at, you know, deep diving into the policies in the local plan on that and making sure, are we all comfortable? Is that the right thing? Or how far might we want to push it in terms of that policy? Always a balance to be had there. And just as you've been talking there, Councillor Ellis, I'm thinking maybe a session on utilities or transport and highways, cycle paths in particular, accessible green space, all these things. So there's maybe something else around there, but a work in progress really, you know, to build on that together. So I'm very much about having that kind of collaborative approach to make sure we have consensus across all the members.
And greater understanding. You want to come back on that, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for your answer. And I think the thing is, with growth, we want infrastructure, but one comes with the other. So we're not going to get the funding for infrastructure without growth. And it's our opportunity now to shape this for the next 20 years, to make sure that, you know, let's put these areas that we do need to grow, because we do need the housing, but we need to make sure that's hand in hand with sustainable developments, with green spaces, with transport options for everybody, not just those who use a car.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hudson. Thank you, Ingrid. Councillor Cole.
Looking at the overall map and the comments that you've just made about protecting green spaces, I know within the map there are some areas that are classified as protected green spaces. After public consultation, is that something that if is wanted or discussed or questioned could be looked at to save some of the special spaces that we've got across the city? Because I think one thing the pandemic showed us is that there are too many people living in really confined spaces, and that actually access to green open spaces is really important. So I just wanted to see whether moving forward, when there's an area that is particularly special, could it be given or consulted on as giving it that special protected space?
No, I think that's a really good point and comments there. So all open space, existing open space, is protected by national policy, and you have to be able to lose that open space has to be fully justified, and it's quite tight rules on how to do that, how you could do that. And then there's the additional local green space, which is where a community, and it's usually suggestions come from the community to say this land is very important to our local community, and it's giving it extra protection, an extra layer of recognition, I suppose. So local communities had the opportunity during the previous consultations to suggest sites to us. They've all been assessed, and if they meet the criteria, have been included in the draft plan. But there's nothing to stop, as part of the consultation, communities suggesting more land to us, and we can review those. And again, there is set criteria of how they have to meet that, and that criteria has been made public, so people can see and see if it's likely to meet that criteria or not before they suggest.
Right, thank you, Joe. You okay? Yes. Any further? I mean, there's been some comments and debate. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add? Councillor Jamil.
Thank you, Leader. I was one of the people on the working group for the local plan. And I just think that the amount of effort and time councillors and officers spent on this, I think it would be an injustice if we don't go with the whole plan as it is to consultation. After consultation, we can then decide whether we need to chop, change, whatever, what's not good for us, what will be good for us. So we listen to the public, see what they can come back with as well. So I would recommend that we go with the whole plan and then go to consultation, and then we can then work out what we're going to do next.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to contribute anything before we move to the recommendations? Okay. Colleagues, we're being recommended to, 1, approve the draft version of the Peterborough Local Plan for public consultation starting in April 2025 for a minimum of 6 weeks, and 2, delegate authority to officers to make any required amendments to the document prior to its publication in order to correct matters of fact or aid clarity to the reader and amend the graphic design of the report. Are we content to approve those recommendations? Councillor Jones.
Do we just need to add something in there about the additional consultations that we are now going to look at? A member wants
It's post, but it's.
Is that,
I understand, but I think
Yeah.
as Councillor Jamil said,
Yeah.
the consultation goes ahead, and I think we'll come back to that. I think that's a matter of public record now, so
Okay.
post-consultation. It's a fair point, but I think, are we agreed on the recommendations as they stand? Thank you.